Welcome back, everybody, back to another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. We are live here on 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube. And this Wednesday, May the 15th, 2024. Hope everybody's having a great Wednesday. It is Stanley Cup playoff time. As usual, we are knee-deep into the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And shortly, we'll be joined by the host of the Rod Pedersen Show. Rod Pedersen is also knee-deep in the Stanley Cup playoffs in the second round right there in Florida as the Florida Panthers and the Boston Bruins are hooked up in an epic battle. We'll have him on here momentarily. And so we're going to talk all about the Stanley Cup playoffs and, of course, what's going on in Toronto as the Maple Leafs are looking for a new head coach again. And later on in the show, we'll talk about Jared Goff. He got himself a massive contract. And next up, we're going to wonder who is going to be in line for that first $60 million a year contract, or if anybody is worth it right now that's up for an extension. And lastly, tonight, the NFL schedule release is due in about an hour or so. The Lions schedule is leaked out. We get the Rams in a rematch of the playoffs, opening game Sunday night in the Motor City. That is going to be unbelievable. But now, without any further ado, let's see if we can bring in Rod Pedersen, the head coach of the Rod Pedersen Show. Rod, thanks for joining us tonight. How are you?
What's up, Big Lou? Good to hear you, buddy.
Yeah, good to hear you as well. It's it's one of my favorite times of the year right now with the Stanley Cup playoffs. And as we mentioned, you're knee deep in it right now down in Florida with the Panthers and the Bruins. Kind of a tough loss for the Panthers as they looked to sew it up last night. But, hey, we get an exciting Game 6 up in Boston on Friday.
Hey, don't mind me as I adjust the tripod here.
No, you're good.
I'm always good with more hockey. But I've been doing, I think you know a little bit of my other career. I've been counseling Panthers fans today that are just so upset. And listen, I think there's a misnomer out there that people think Florida people don't know hockey. Most don't, but the fans do. And the team's been here for 30 years, right? So they know the game. They certainly know the rules, but they can't figure out how the team laid an egg in an elimination game. And I'm like, well, to be honest, Lou, I don't know if you're football first or hockey first. It looks like hockey first based on your wall there.
Yes.
But I said, here's a phrase I picked up in football. It's a bitch when the other team tries, too. And Boston wasn't going to go away, not this easily. No. And that's why we got Game 6 Friday night, and maybe a Game 7.
You know, we'll talk about the other games throughout this little piece here. But, it's funny is one side complains about the cross-check. Now the other side's complaining about it last night. Rod, I'm happy that neither goal was taken away. It could have gone either way, but I'm glad neither one was taken away. Now the folks are as good as the people with that as we head into Game 6.
Well, this is what I say. I just learned, Lou, that my hockey officiating certification has lapsed. Apparently, you need to read. But I had one time certified hockey official. And I used to think when I left the rink that if both teams were mad, I did a good job. If one was bad and the other team wasn't or was happy, I must have screwed somewhere up along the line. And in this series, both teams have a reason. I'll be honest. Again, I've only lived here 3 years. I'm not some dyed-in-the-wool Panthers fan. So when the Bruins said they were getting screwed, they were. I don't think you would argue that.
Yeah.
And with the game winner last night coming on a challenge goaltender interference call that the goal was allowed to stand, you got to almost wonder, did Don Sweeney complaining after Game 4 actually get in the official's grill and the situation? Toronto, it's hard to say that it didn't.
Yeah. Well, and I think referees are going to listen. I don't care what anybody says. You plant the seed and it's going to be there, but I don't know. I don't want to spend this whole thing on referees, but Rod, do you think that it's gotten out of hand more in the last couple of years, the way everybody's bitching and moaning about the referees?
No, I don't. And
okay.
It's a great question. And by the way, it's your show, so we'll talk about it as long as we want. I think station too, yet it's all we hear.
Yeah.
So I'm not stupid enough to ignore it. but I love Tim Peel as a referee, and he's become a regular on my show. And I said to Tim, vote on our poll here. Our poll question today is, how much has officiating affected the Stanley Cup playoffs? A lot, no more than normal, or very little. And his answer was no more than normal. And I voted the exact same thing. I think the only thing we hear is just the advent of social media. It just got louder and louder and louder. That's it. But as far as calls go, I will also say this. A couple games into round one, Peel was on. And I said, who sets the tone for the officiating? And he goes, Gary Bettman has a conference call either the night before game one or the morning of with all the refs and says, guys, call everything. And I'm like, thank you. Thanks for explaining it, because it looks like they're calling everything.
Yeah.
Right? Round one. But then we get into round two, and it took we got halfway through round two where that was out the window. And not everything's being called, but some weird things are being called. And dude, Lou, you and I both got some white around the temples, doing this a long time. Again, you're not going to please everybody. So, but if you get the one getting hosed, I can see why you'd be upset. Let's put it that way.
Well, we all know how momentum is in sports. You've been covering the game a long time. They're going to game 6. Boston's got it back. Let's say they win Friday night. The pressure is going to be so enormous for Florida back for game 7, if that comes to be coming up this weekend. And I think it's going to be very difficult if Florida loses on Friday night.
Well, and a lot will have to do whether Brad Marchand plays or not.
Yeah.
We don't know, obviously. It's almost a game-time decision thing. But they've won without Marchand, so it's not the end. The Panthers don't want it to go to game 7. But I say this again. It was the Boston Bruins. They weren't going to go away.
No.
And they've got pride, and they were angry at the fact that, I've, played the game, been broadcast so many long series, short series. We've all lived it. They're too good a team to just go away. They're not the Leafs.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. Hey, speaking of teams making a comeback, Carolina down 3-0. I kind of expected them to win game 5. And then I was watching game 4, excuse me. I was watching game 5 the other night. Honest to God, I turned the channel for 15 minutes. All of a sudden I see that they're up 3-1. Now you talk about momentum. They're back in Carolina for game 6. Are they playing with the nothing to lose, playing on house money card right now and going into game 6?
I still think there's a lot of pressure on them no matter what, because their coach is, the story of his expiring Rod Brindamore. And it's like there's more friction, might not be the right term, but there's more to the story, I think, than we think being outside Raleigh. Like if they don't get it done, he's probably not coming back.
Yeah.
Because how many playoff disappointments can you have? That's one. 2, I think you just got to go play your game and not worry about the pressure or the distractions or not getting the calls. It was like after game 3 when they went down 3-0, Brindamore said, who I love as a Notre Dame guy, I'm sure you do. He goes, we're playing great and we're losing. There's not many scarier feelings in the world than that. The only answer to that is just keep playing your best, and you hope that it turns around. And lo and behold, it has. But it's a hell of a lot easier to accept that we didn't play good. We lost tonight because we played like shit. We lost the series because we were bad. Our best players weren't our best players. Whatever. When you play your best and you lose, that's tough. And I'm glad that they're coming back, because I had them picked to go to the Stanley Cup final. I had Dallas, Carolina as the Stanley Cup final, and Dallas winning. So they got to come back.
Well, I'm going to ask you about Dallas in a moment, but I still look at the Rangers and how scary good they were all year. And, I still think they're going to win the series, especially I don't think they're going to lose 4 straight. But it's got to be creeping in the back of their head a little bit.
But the other thing is, why are we all so surprised? We knew good teams go out in round 1, let alone round 2.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I can't remember who I was talking to. It might have been Duguay. some alum. Oh, it was Alan May on the Capitals broadcast,
Okay.
and I just said, "This is going to be a slobber knocker." Rangers Carolina, like this is a Stanley Cup final worthy series in round 2, and that's exactly what we're getting. The games of overtime have been unpredictable. It's been great goaltending. It's been rough, not dissimilar, frankly, to this Florida-Boston series. One team you thought had it in the bag, and then the other team's coming back, pulling a Hulk Hogan leg on the bottom rope. If Gary Bettman, it's a dream.
Oh. You've got 3 of the 4 series right now heading to 6 games, and depending on what happens tonight with Dallas and in Colorado, I saw you've talked on social media, and I saw your bit about coming up with Colorado with the suspension of Nichushkin. My only problem with that, Rod, with that suspension is they announced it an hour before the game started. And I just think the timing was kind of poor with all of that on the Colorado end. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
It was weird.
Yeah.
But listen, you saw the clip. I'm a certified mental health and addiction recovery. So the whole situation's ugly. Addiction is ugly. Addiction doesn't wait. I'm actually really happy that the discussion is out there.
Yes.
Right? Just that we're talking about it. Like a guy wrote me and said, how bad can it be? Like, can they not wait until the end of the series or the end of the playoffs? I'm like, bro, addiction doesn't wait. We're talking literal life and death. I don't know any of the details of what happened. Did he go out the night before? Did he get in trouble? How did it? To be honest with you, if you're Colorado, you'd probably like to hide it if you could, because he's leading the team goal scoring. So there's way more to this than any of us know. But I guess the point is they laid down rules. They're very strict rules. And I actually agree with the rules. Stage 1, 2, 3, the suspension go along with them. All that's fine. People were saying it's not the NHL's job to rid the stigma of addiction. I said, who said they should? They've got a code. He broke it. He's got to comply with the discipline. He's at fault here.
Right.
And I don't argue that. I've lived it.
Yeah.
But and hopefully this is the rock bottom that it's going to take for him to change. Maybe not. You saw Jared Bednar's, his coach's comment. He goes, I hope he finds the piece he needs.
Yes.
But it's listen, dude, it's a far bigger, deeper topic than we have time for today. But I see it. I work doing it in the sports industry, but in the entertainment industry, it's no different. It's like the singer that if he's not on stage, he's not selling tickets to the concert. So the promoter and the manager and everybody wants him on stage. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing. But what's best is for the person to get help. No matter what. If it was an hour before a sold-out concert, you'd say, what shitty timing. Addiction doesn't wait.
No.
Right?
No, it doesn't. I guess, and I'm glad you enlightened me on that, Rod, because my thing was that he was at the skate, but if they did find the information out 90 minutes before the game, then I get it.
That would be yes. Yeah.
Okay. That's so getting back to the actual game. Now, maybe it's just me. And now I hear that you picked Dallas to go to the Stanley Cup Finals. To me, they are the most under the radar successful team in recent years. They go about their business. They won their division, and they're one game away from going to the conference finals.
Again,
I'm not floored by it, but I'm very impressed by it.
Well, I am too. And again, back to the deeper layers. And I know that you're a hockey guy, so you'll appreciate this. My dad worked for the Stars for 26 years.
Yeah.
There isn't one person, I don't think, left with that team from when my dad retired about 7-8 years ago. Not one person left. Okay. Jim Neal was the GM of the year in the NHL last year, their general manager. He's blown through coaches, not at a record pace, but enough.
Yeah.
He got bonus in favor of Peter DeBoer. All the scouts are gone. So, it's an entirely new organization from what I knew. And he's rebuilt it. And you mentioned back to the conference final. They've been in it every year or the Stanley Cup final, right? But nobody talks about them. And the only thing I think is It's the market that they're in. It's the only thing I think, because, I mean, you're sitting up there in Michigan, right?
Yeah.
Detroit is an honorary Canadian city. Let's be honest. It is.
Well,
like,
sure.
Sure, as far as hockey goes. So you get the glare and the pressure and the pub. Dallas doesn't get it. The Florida Panthers don't get it. That's the one thing. I say they know hockey here. I feel they do, but they don't get anywhere near the coverage. Bro, high school sports gets infinite. The Panthers get none. Like, none. Right? And high school sports gets more. They don't get the most. I mean, it's Dolphins are number one.
Right.
But the point is, if you're a player or a coach here, you can kind of go about your business under the radar. You're not bothered. Nobody knows who you are. And if that suits you, which it clearly does for Matthew Tkachuk and Paul Maurice, or Rupe Hintz, or Jason Robertson, or Kent Johnson, or Peter DeBoer, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
A certain type of person would thrive in that environment. And I think that's what's going on with Dallas. I really do.
We're joined by Rod Pedersen from the Rod Pedersen Show. You can see him noon to 2 on their YouTube channel, live on YouTube TV. Also, you can listen on WQEE and on Game Plus Network. And also, you can watch his work on the Cats and Bolts podcast. A great show that they do. Rod, you mentioned Paul Maurice real quick before we get to the Edmonton series. I know I'm jumping around, but
that's good.
Can you have you found a guy that's, I mean, any more besides maybe Don Cherry with the sound bites and how much fun he is to be around, even when they're losing?
No. And the thing is, he was in Winnipeg for 9 years. I was right next door in Saskatchewan. So I saw and heard just what everything Paul Maurice said. And, he had quite a bit of success in Winnipeg, really, in terms of wins, not playoff success. Mm-hmm. But then I come down here and he's the same guy, but he won't say one ill word about Winnipeg. Nothing. He won't say it publicly. He won't say it privately, from what I understand. He just really loves it here. He lives blocks from the beach, talks about the sun. Everybody's in a good mood all the time. And I've been sitting in his news conferences, especially in the playoffs, and just spellbound, Lou. Like, my jaw's on the floor going, this guy is so freaking intelligent. Yeah. I feel like wadding all the reporters in the shoulder and going, are you listening? Are you understanding what we're getting here? We're getting like a master class in coaching and life from Paul Maurice. And then he makes these silly, goofy things. But the thing is, he's not trying to be funny. I swear to God, he's not.
Yeah.
That's just him.
He's, again, he is a treat to watch, and you do learn a lot from him. And I've seen some interviews with him, how intelligent he really is. Edmonton and Vancouver. It's been another entertaining series, as they all been. And now we get a new twist with Picard and Net. I remember him when he was in Detroit briefly, right before COVID. Then he got reassigned to Grand Rapids and signed to Edmonton to a two-way deal, two-way contract. I mean, just another twist in that saga with the Edmonton Oilers trying to survive in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, you want to talk about coaching. Like, I remember WHL days. I've never known how to say his name. I thought it was Pickard. Now it's Picard. Whatever. Going into Game 4 that he was starting, people were writing into my show saying Picard starting. I didn't think they were serious. I didn't read it there because I was like, there's no way, he's never started a playoff game before. Yeah. Stuart Skinner is their guy, and he was not an AHL. He was a Calder Cup finalist last year for Rookie of the Year. He's got all that. He's been in the big games. He's won a Western Hockey League championship. He's played in the Memorial Cup. As far as I'm concerned, Stuart Skinner's battle tested, and maybe he had a bad Game 3, but I don't think he'd go with a backup who's never started a playoff game before. And then they did.
Yeah.
They won. But my point on that is the goalies, not even the goalie coaches, the coaches in general know what they have. They know them better than you and I know, but they sure as hell know more than what the fans know. And if they thought Picard was ready, they made the right call. The only question now is, because again, it was a surprise they started him. You have to go back with him. You have to.
Yeah. I mean, it almost reminds me of a smaller scale of the situation you're looking at with Boston with, with their two goaltender situation.
Swayman and Allmark. Yeah. Yes. Well, I didn't really understand that. I mean, I like to use the football terms because, as you know, I was in the CFL for so long.
Yeah.
if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have one. I always kind of believed that until the Eagles won a Super Bowl with two, Wentz and Foles. And I'm like, I guess maybe that's not the case. So with Boston, if you've got two goalies like this, and let's remember they won the Jennings 2 years ago, like they're really good, then maybe there's not a problem in rotating them. But Swayman, Jim Montgomery felt won them the Leafs series. And I know he felt they won him game 5. Game 5 here last night. So, listen, goaltending is so important. I don't know how Washington or Colorado won a Stanley Cup with Darcy Kemper in goal. I don't understand it. Or
I don't either.
Or Vegas with a guy that's not even playing now. Or, I mean, they're out, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Right.
I like to think I'm a goalie guy, but I don't know everything. And that's a bit of a head scratcher to me.
It is. And again, I look at Vancouver and, you talk about hot goaltending. They've had it all year. And that's another team. I tell my viewers and listeners, how many people on one hand had Vancouver win in that division? And they're still, to me, enjoying a very successful run in the Stanley Cup. They're 2-2 with Edmonton.
To be honest, they're a little like Leaf fans. I would be very happy if they won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Because they need it. They are a damaged fan base that don't know how to act. I was just thinking about this today, driving around here in Boca. I was lucky to be with 2 championship teams in the Canadian Football League and was in Memorial Cups in junior hockey and didn't win.
Yeah.
And I was like, how would Vancouver fans know how to win? They've never won. Until you win, you don't know how to win. You don't even know how to conduct yourself. So they've been running around all season doing victory laps, the fans, and even now, proclaiming, I'm like, guys, you haven't won anything at all. You're not even out of round 2. It gets harder, So for that reason, I would like to see them win the Stanley Cup. But it's a long road, dude. It feels like we've been on a long road.
Yeah.
Only halfway through round 2.
But it's been fun, hasn't it? Is this, to me, it's been, maybe we say it every year, Rod, but to me, this has been one of the more exciting Stanley Cup tournaments. Again, we said it, 3 out of the 4 series are going 6, possibly all 4 if Colorado can pull one out tonight against Dallas. I've been riveted. I fall asleep watching it just because of my work schedule, but there's no better way to go.
Well, I'm riveted too. I'll be honest. I broke my own rule and I got my hopes too high going into the playoffs, i.e. like the end of the regular season was statistically, I'm not a science guy. I'm not an analytics guy at all. I do listen to it. And they said the regular season ended was the best ending in NHL regular season history. Like 3 teams shifted within an hour.
Yeah.
Right. That's exciting. And I was like, ooh, boy. And now round 1's going to be awesome. Well, the Battle of Florida was a dud.
Yeah.
5 and Tampa never even showed up. The Winnipeg Jets folded like this cheap lawn chair. So, I mean, thank God for the Leafs Bruins series. Was good. Dallas series was unreal. But that was only like 2 series out of 8 in my mind that were wild. Round 2 has made up for the lack of excitement around 1.
Oh, for sure.
It's not at all.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. All right, Rod, the first time you came on our show, we talked about this, and it's made its way again. The Toronto Maple Leafs are without a head coach again with Keefe getting fired. Now, we're hearing the stories here about Craig Berube. I know he talked with Winnipeg. And you mentioned Rod Brindamore. If they get knocked out, he's probably not coming back. Could you see either one of them behind the bench in Toronto, or are you hearing a name that I may be missing that might, are they waiting until the end of the Stanley Cup? What temperature are you hearing in Toronto for the head coach?
The guy you should get on is Rich Sutter, and I'll give you his number.
Okay.
Because I'm just going to sit here and kind of repeat what he said on my show this week. And he basically said Craig Berube should have his pick of jobs.
Yeah.
The way Barry Trotz did when he left the Islanders, sat out for a year and then had his pick, and he's like, I think I'd like to be GM of Nashville. He could have been the head coach in Winnipeg and a variety of other places. I think that's what Berube is. The hockey people feel he is the best coach available, period. There was noise that John Cooper was going to leave Tampa, but that quieted down. And I don't even know where that came from or why. But that John Cooper was going to leave Tampa for Toronto, which would have been something.
Yeah.
But I think as a matter of fact, I know this. I don't think it. I've been doing this long enough to know teams with bad cultures. Dallas Cowboys fan right here. Do you know what I mean? They will never win.
Right.
So you sit there and point the finger at Mike McCarthy or Jason Garrett or Sheldon Keefe or Mike Babcock or in Calgary, Daryl Sutter or Brad Living. The fans and the media just always want to point at the faces of the people that failed. And I'm like, it's way higher than that. And it's way bigger than those guys. So I just think if Mike Babcock can't win in Toronto, I don't think anybody can. And I've never lived in Toronto, but I have lived in Calgary a couple of times in my life. And it's insane, the pressure in the market. Like, who am I? Nobody. But when I go to the gas station, grocery store, doing my show from the casino, people are up in my face. What's wrong with the Flames? How are they going to do here? What do you think of the top line? What would you do with the power play? And Tim Hunter, Tim, the big nose guy, he's coached and played in Calgary, coached in Toronto. He goes, you think it's bad here? It's 10 times worse in Toronto.
Boy.
I can't imagine.
No.
You know what? I think it's a Canadian thing because I don't know the Dolphins guys. I've been around the football people. They say it's not as intense here. And it's not like it's really any bigger. Like there's 10.5 million people here, but Toronto's a big market.
Yeah.
Calgary's a pretty big. It's not a size of market thing. It's intensity in the market of the fans. Canada's nuts when it comes to their teams.
There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's great. You mentioned, how Vancouver doesn't know how to win or hasn't. You should have took a walk through Detroit with the Lions back in January, and I was able to go to a playoff game there, and it was something I've never lived. And I don't even know if they win. Rod, I don't even know if they were to win the Super Bowl, it would be as exciting as what it was winning that first playoff game in 65 years? Or they won one. But one in 30 some years. It was absolutely incredible.
I find it fascinating to me that the Lions are still the number one sports team in Detroit, which is what I from the Detroit people.
Yeah.
But you tell me, it's your show. I apologize for asking you the question.
No.
But would you say the Ford family are good owners or bad owners, given the organization's track record?
Oh, I think they're horrible owners. But the old man was, and his wife didn't do it. Now that the daughter is running it, obviously they hired the right people. They hired Brad Holmes, and they're letting them do it. I think they were loyal to a fault with their old GMs over the years with, and then of course the coaches with Wayne Fonts and keeping Matt Millen for 8 years. I mean, that was a train wreck from the word go. And, they finally have gotten somebody running the team that's young, that actually cares, that it's not more than just, an investment money wise. But it'll be interesting to see what they do this year with that monster schedule they got coming out. So
victims of their own success, but I mean, going the right way, the football gods will take care of them. Remember what happened in Dallas on the disputed call, They ended up getting the playoffs. I thought so. It's going the right way. That's why I asked, because I don't follow the Lions enough to know, but I just think it's hilarious or interesting that the day Dan Campbell was hired, his introductory news conference was like he just stepped out of a cave.
Yeah.
Well, we're all laughing at this guy. And all of a sudden we realize a couple years later, there's way more to him than meets the eye. And it's what I think you and I love, and anybody watching this show, it's why they're watching it. Sports is so great.
Yeah.
Nobody really figured it out other than maybe Stan Kroenke, because he's won championships in every league.
Yeah.
But it's just, when you say loyal to a fault, I've seen it enough. Business people that made billions in making cars or tractors or selling oil or whatever, it doesn't translate to running a freaking sports team, but you think that it does. It's not the same, right? And they want to run the sport like they run their manufacturing company or whatever. It doesn't work. Like, get out of the way. You know,
Well,
and the best
yeah.
owner.
I will say this about Dan Campbell. He is intelligent because he surrounds himself with very, very good people, smart people. You can tell by their coaches. You know, they've got ex-players, and the coaches are making him look really good. I'm not saying he's not smart, but you look at his stable, he's got coaches.
The smartest, most secure people do surround themselves with
Yes.
smarter people
100%.
or people that make them look better. And the insecure people do not. And listen, I've done enough studying on Dan Campbell because I'm fascinated by success. I think we all want to be.
Yes.
And, you know, it's the authenticity. I think that's why I've had success in the recovery coaching realm. Same reason as Dan Campbell. What people have told me is he doesn't ask the players to do anything that he didn't do himself, whether it's in the weight room or on the field one-on-one. He would never ask anybody to do something he didn't do. And it's the same thing as me leading people in mental health and addiction recovery. I walked in your shoes. I know what's popping out around every corner. You know what I mean? And I will never be bigger than you because I'm not. Right? And I'm here to help you and get the most out of you. And that's exactly what Dan Campbell does. And I respect the hell out of him.
Well, I'll get you out on this because I'll let you get ready to watch Game 5 here coming up at the top of the hour with Colorado and Dallas. I have to ask you, speaking of the Lions, we drafted Giovanni Manu out of British Columbia in the 4th round. I asked you about bets, I believe, earlier in the year on private message. I think they got a stud. That guy looks like a physical specimen. He can in Manu with a 5-flat 40 for a guy that's 350. I think it's a great find for Brad Holmes coming to Detroit.
Well, I didn't really give you much of an answer because I didn't know. I don't know if you were talking about Manu or bets. Bets, I can help a little more. Is that you talking about bets or Manu?
Well, Manu in the draft, I asked you back in January, I think it was when they signed, or February, when they signed Betts to that free agent deal.
Yeah.
You said he was one of the best players in the CFL.
The best Canadian. He won the award for the most outstanding Canadian in the Canadian Football League, which if you go down and look at the list, it's a pretty impressive list of football. Manu, I can't. There's only so much that I can keep track of.
Sure.
His collegiate career is not one. You want to ask me about Cardinal Gibbons High School here or Miami FSU or FAU, I could give you a better answer. I said didn't know much about the guy.
That's fine. I just, I saw that he got drafted, and he's getting rave reviews so far, but it's early. So,
well, I will say one funny thing. Because I'm from Canada, the people here, I have to answer every question for Canada. There's an example of it right there. And they announced last week, or it came out, that Toronto's getting a WNBA team. So my friends were all horny about that. Oh, man, Toronto's WNBA. What do you think about that? And I'm like, dude, look at a map. Toronto is – I'm about as far from my home as we are from Toronto right now. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I represent Canada in a lot of ways, and that's a big cross to bear.
Oh, it is. And I should have thought of that beforehand, but
it's all good.
Well, hey, Rod, this has been fun as always. I appreciate you taking time out during the playoff run to talk some pucks with me. It's always enlightening and a lot of fun. Enjoy the rest of the playoffs, and keep up the great work. I watch you all the time on your YouTube channel, and it's very informative. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you doing that. Don't be afraid to comment, Lou. And send me your digits, or we'll go back and forth. I'd like to bring you on to talk some pucks myself. Even though Detroit's not in the playoffs yet, you're obviously watching close. So let's hook that up.
All right, I will do that again, Rod. Thanks. Enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy down there. All right. Rod Pedersen from the Rod Pedersen Show, taking time out of his busy schedule. It's, again, as we said, knee-deep in Stanley Cup playoff action, the 2nd round, which to me has been nothing short of amazing. With all the series, we've got 3 of them that are 3-2, and the other one tonight, Game 5. Colorado, obviously, in a must-win situation against the Dallas Stars. Dallas up 3-1. Colorado losing their leading goal scorers, we mentioned, with the suspension for the illegal substance abuse policy. He's going to be out at least 6 months, but again, you've got Boston and Florida Friday night, Game 6 up in the Garden. Well, it's not Boston Garden anymore, Boston, whatever. You've got Carolina tomorrow night hosting the Rangers in Game 6. Carolina was down 3-0. 1 game for New York. We're down 1-0 in game 5 now. Or I'm sorry, 1 game 4 in Carolina, 1 game 5 in New York. They were down 1-0 going into the third period, I believe, and scored 3 quick goals to go up 3-1 in a blink of an eye. Now they've got game 6 in Carolina tomorrow night. Boy, if they win that, can you imagine game 7 at Madison Square Garden? Who's the pressure going to be on? Is it going to be New York? Is it going to be Carol? Who's got the pressure? It's amazing. It's a great point by Rod. He mentions that they've got Rod Brindamore. There's a lot of friction going on there, and with his contract about to be expired, so the pressure might be on him to win. They've gotten close, haven't been able to get over the hump. But I like the Rangers team. I think they're just a little bit deeper. And I know, but again, momentum's a crazy thing. And if Carolina can win tomorrow night, force a game 7 up in the Garden, that's going to be must-see TV. And then, of course, you got Vancouver and Edmonton. Edmonton with Picard in net yesterday. We talked about it. I mean, he signing 2-way deals with the parent club and the minor club. He had a cup of coffee with Detroit, spent the most of his time with the Griffins, and now he was pressed into service. And what I think was a must-win game, because you go down 3-1 against a team like Vancouver, any team, when you're at this level of Stanley Cup playoffs, it's going to be hard to come back from. But we've got teams that are going to try to do that down 3-2. So here we go. We've got 3-2 with New York Rangers over Carolina. We got 3-2 now with Boston trailing Florida. 3-1 Colorado trying to get back in it against Dallas tonight, 8:00 Eastern, and the tip from Dallas, and 2-2 Edmonton and Vancouver. So these are going to be some whale of an ending, some great endings for the Stanley Cup playoffs with Edmonton, with all 4 series before we get to the conference finals. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk more. We're going to switch gears and talk some NFL football. Jared Goff, he became a rich man. Let's see if we can figure out a way to help him spend some of that money. And we'll ask you, as we did on our poll question, the Captain Lou Extravaganza poll question, with him signing that mega deal worth $215 million, 4 years, $215 million, who is going to be the first $60 million a year quarterback? And will they deserve that $60 million a year? Who's up next for extensions? We'll talk about that and the schedule release and more right here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza, live here on 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Sports Network. Hi, everybody. Captain Lou here from 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Extravaganza. If you're like me, you like to go to ball games in person, don't you? Or a hockey game. Stanley Cup playoffs are in full swing. Your favorite NBA team in the second round of the playoffs, or maybe all the way to the top. Major League or minor league baseball, nothing like a Saturday night game at a ballpark. Well, your place to go is tickets.12ouncesports.com. Use the promo code 12ounce too, and you'll get a better discount. We are a ticket broker. We won't make you pay those fees that you'll see at some of those secondary markets. Tickets.12ouncesports.com. Can't say enough about it. It's where I go to get my last-minute tickets to go to a ball game on a Saturday night or any night during the week. Tickets.12ouncesports.com. I'm telling you, that is the place to go. Stanley Cup playoffs, NBA playoffs, Major League, minor league baseball, and more. That's tickets.12ouncesports.com. Indeed, it is really your place to go for all your ticket. We are not a ticket broker, or we are a ticket broker. We're not charging the fees of those secondary markets. So if there's a Stanley Cup game you want to go to, we've got tickets available for all of them. The NBA playoffs, as I mentioned, and let's say you want to go watch the Tigers. I know you could probably hit better than what the Tigers are doing. Can you believe that? The Florida Marlins or Miami Marlins or whatever Marlins you want to call them, they have the worst run support or worst run output of any team in the major leagues, and the worst ERA of all 30 teams. And guess what? Detroit got shut out back to back, 2-0 and 1-0. We're wasting amazing pitching performances. Oh my God, I could spend a whole show on it, but I digress. The Tigers, these are supposed to, whatever. I mean, see, I'm getting all flustered here. We want to talk about good stuff here. But anyways, go to tickets.12ouncesports.com. Get the tickets go watch the Lansing Lugnuts or whatever minor league team, the Toledo Mud Hens, whatever team is nearest your area. Minor league baseball is so much fun, and you can get tickets for those games through tickets.12ouncesports.com. Also want to remind you, we're brought to you every week, as always, by Javi Coffee. Go to javicoffee.com. Do you like instant coffee, or you like coffee in general? Go the instant coffee route with javicoffee.com. It's not messy. You take a couple of teaspoons, maybe a tablespoon. You like it hot or cold? You like iced coffee? javicoffee.com. Regular, decaf, salted caramel, French vanilla. That's the kind that I drink, and I love it. Absolutely love it. Make one every morning before I go to work. It is javicoffee.com. And go use the promo code Captain Lou at checkout, and you'll get 15% off of your purchase. That is javicoffee.com. I want to thank Rod Pedersen again for joining us here on the show, of course, from the Rod Pedersen Show, Monday through Friday, 12 to 2 on his YouTube channel, and always on WQEE and the Game Network, Game Plus Network. Great show. He's got amazing guests. If you want to learn anything about Stanley Cup playoff action or the NHL, that is your place to go. That is the Rod Pedersen Show. And he's, again, also amazing guests every day, as we mentioned. All right, as we roll on here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza, Jared Goff, we talked about it before the break. He signed a massive extension, 4 years, $215 million, I believe, or $213 million. The second highest paid quarterback now per year in the NFL, behind Joe Burrow, I believe, is a couple of $1 million ahead of him. $173 million guaranteed. And it's amazing. You know, first of all, the reaction here in the Detroit area has been mixed. And of course, nationwide, a lot of people are saying he's overpaid. Well, let me ask you a question. How many Detroit teams have made it to the NFC Championship game in the last, 60 years? One. That's it. How long has Detroit suffered? We've had one playoff win here in the Motor City or the Detroit area since 1957. Detroit hasn't won an NFL championship since 1957. Detroit is one of only 4 teams that have never made a Super Bowl. That's terrible. We talked about it. Rod asked how the ownership was in Detroit when he was on. So it's been horrible for years. And now we've got someone in here running the place, Sheila Ford Hemp. She knows what she obviously has an idea of what's going on, and she knows what she wants. She wants to bring a winner to Detroit. She's not satisfied with just making money. But to make money and to make wins, you got to pay for it. They've got the important guys locked up. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Penei Sewell, and now Jared Goff. There was a little question on what they were going to pay him. Did they have to overpay him? Sure, they did. Name me a quarterback that isn't overpaid right now in the NFL. You've got the salary cap that's gone up 19% or whatever it is, 19.2%. So these teams can afford it. They've got the room. In 3 years from now, Jared Goff's contract is going to be middle of the road. It's going to be worth it. The impact that he is, you hear the Jared Goff chants. If you were lucky enough to go to the playoff game or some of the games towards the end of the year in Detroit, who are they chanting? Now, I talked about it. You've heard me numerous times on this show. It brings chills every time I talk to it. I was blessed enough to go to 2 games in a row this year in Detroit. The regular season finale against Minnesota and that playoff win against the Rams. Well, let me tell you something. I'll repeat it. I went down there with my son and with my brother and his 2 kids. We decided to go. The gates opened up 2 hours and 45 minutes before game time. So it would have been 5:30 on that Sunday night. We thought, we thought about maybe waiting to get in there about 6:30, let the initial crowd get in. We thought, we better head there early. And I'm glad we did. We got in there when the gates opened, walked around. They had the Dallas Green Bay playoff game on all the screens, on the big screen inside. if you wanted to sit in your seats. You know what they were doing the whole 2.5 hours? You know what they were chanting? Jared Goff. And I'm talking loud. They were chanting it through the whole pregame. They were chanting it throughout the game, after the game. They weren't chanting, Barry Sanders, although he was there and it was awesome. They were chanting Jared Goff. Jared Goff. You name one athlete that has made that much of an impression. And not only there, how many Spartan games, men's basketball games did you go to and you heard the Jared Goff chants at those games? Michigan hockey, Michigan State hockey. We went to a couple of Michigan State hockey games and they were chanting Jared Goff. The whole crowd. The guy has helped bring a level of excitement along with Dan Campbell and, this offense and this defense, a level of excitement that nobody has brought to the city of Detroit. I know Detroit has won 4 Stanley Cups in the last 25 years. I get it. The Pistons have won 3 championships since 1989. The Tigers, they won a World Series, but that was 40 years ago. They've been to the World Series a couple of times. But this town is a football town. As Rod Pedersen mentioned in the last half hour, he's absolutely right. This is a football town. And if you got to overpay for a quarterback, in my opinion, yeah, he hasn't won a Super Bowl, but he has brought in a level of excitement that this town, this city, and this area has never seen. And to me, it's well worth every penny. And like I said, in a couple of years, 3 years, he's not going to be the highest paid quarterback. He won't probably be the highest paid quarterback by June 15th, which raises the next question. We put this poll up on our social media platforms, X and Facebook and whatnot. Since Jared Goff signed that massive deal and is now the second highest paid quarterback with $173 million guaranteed, $213 million over the life of the contract. Now we've got some other quarterbacks up for extensions. Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, just to name 3 of them. I know there's more coming up. Our question to you is, are any of them worth $60 million? Because that's going to be the next threshold. And somebody's going to overpay. And I also want to thank, as a is Brock Purdy worth it? Are you going to pay Jordan Love $260 million for 8 games? I mean, think about it. And then you've got some of these other quarterbacks. What about Tua? Are any of them worth it? And on our poll question right now, 48% say no, nobody's worth it. Well, they may not be worth it, but they're going to get it. So I guess I should say, who's the next one that's going to get it? And the viewers and the listeners have spoken, and they think it's going to be Brock Purdy. And God bless him. He's won a couple of games. He's gotten them to the Super Bowl. He's done it before Jordan Love. Obviously, he's done it before Dak Prescott. Can you imagine Brock Purdy getting $60 million a year? But then again, 10 years ago, did we imagine any of these quarterbacks getting $50 million a year? But I think Jared Goff is worth every penny to the city of Detroit. Now they're going to have to go win a Super Bowl. The pressure's going to be on, but we'll see if he can react to that pressure. Well, finally tonight, the NFL schedule. Well, actually, the release is tonight. I put it on there. Is this tonight or tomorrow? Whatever. I believe it is tonight. Maybe, I don't know, whatever. It's released here this week. Let's just do it that way. We'll go that way. The Detroit schedule has been leaked out. Now we know where all the games are going to be played, if the rumors hold true. And with the rumored Detroit schedule, they're going to open up on Sunday Night Football against the Los Angeles Rams. Matthew Stafford's coming back to Detroit, this time for a regular season game. Now, I want to hear I've been muted and I've been blocked by LA Ram media, because, they say that they were picking on, Kelly Stafford, and they shouldn't have been as hard on her and booing her and Matt Stafford like they did. You know what? It's all part of the game. Matthew Stafford's going to be beloved in the city of Detroit. He still is. but he couldn't do what Jared Goff did last year, and that's lead them to a couple of playoff wins at home. Now, I know he didn't maybe have some of the talent that Jared Goff had, but he also had opportunities to win games at home, to get them home playoff games that he, quite frankly, didn't show up in. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. Detroit's got Tampa Bay in the second game. Let's see if I can look up at my schedule real quick here. This is, again, all rumored. But, they've also got the Seattle Seahawks on Monday Night Football at home. Can this be the year we finally beat the Seattle Seahawks? It's starting to get like how it was with the Washington Redskins. Detroit went 0 for 70 years, back when they were the Boston Braves back in the 1930s. Well, they've got the Seattle Seahawks on Monday Night Football and then a bye week. Thank goodness Detroit doesn't have to play on Christmas Day. The rumored games, they're not involved in them. I think it's Kansas City, Baltimore, Texas, and Pittsburgh. And so what they're going to do with that is if they play on Saturday, because they're playing 2 games on Saturday, and those 4 teams are going to play again on that Wednesday on Christmas. We're getting back to the Lions. They're going to be on Sunday Night Football at Houston. That's going to be in Week 10. Then the rumored the rumored Thanksgiving Day game is going to be the Chicago Bears with Caleb Williams at home, and then the following Thursday they get the Green Bay Packers at home, and then they have a Monday Night Football game, second to last game of the year, out at Palo Alto against San Francisco. So Detroit's going to be on national TV at least 6 times in the regular season. So they made an impact. Now it's going to be put up or shut up. And, of course, we got the Dallas Cowboys again at Dallas after the bye week. So we'll see how that works in Week 6. Detroit ends up, if this rumored schedule is true, they're going to be at home against Minnesota again in Week 18. So that could be a very, very crucial situation for the Lions if they're fighting for a playoff spot. Schedule looks like 12 wins, just looking at it right now, maybe 11-6, 12-5. But that'll be good enough to get a playoff, hopefully a home playoff game again. So, yeah, just kind of looking at the schedule. Again, the opening weekend is Thursday night. It's going to be Kansas City hosting Baltimore. You talk about a break as the Kansas City Chiefs get to open with Baltimore and Cincinnati right out of the chute at home. I think the schedule gods in the NFL like the Kansas City Chiefs a little bit. But, hey, remember who opened against the Kansas City Chiefs last year when they did the Super Bowl, the Super Bowl flag or whatever, the championship banner? Who walked in there and showed them who was better that night? That, of course, was Dan Campbell and the Kneecappers, the Detroit Lions. So the kneecap biters, I should say. But, yeah, so they get those 2 games. And, of course, after that first game is Thursday the 5th, and then on Friday, the first game down in Brazil as Green Bay is going to take on Philadelphia. So, man, it's going to be a fun weekend. We're talking NFL. We talk about it all the time, it seems like. But the NFL is less than 4 months away, just like all the other football season, high school and college. And it's going to be here before we know it. And don't forget, coming up in the fall, it's back by popular demand, the Captain Lou 6-Pack Challenge. And we're going to have great prizes for that. It's where you're going to pick against the picks that I make. And if you beat me, you go into the drawing for some great prizes at the end of the year. So we're working on that. It's going to be bigger and better than ever, and especially because we are back, as always, right here on 12 Ounce Sports. So, all right, that's going to about do it here tonight for another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Want to thank, as always, Rod Pedersen, always generous with his time. From the Rod Pedersen Show. Again, catch him on YouTube every day, 12 to 2, Monday through Friday. He is a great lineup of guests, as always, and very, very, when it comes to NHL talk, Stanley Cup talk, there's nobody better than the Rod Pedersen Show, and it's always great to pick his brain for his insight, as he's covered the NHL for a long time. And we want to thank him for coming on the show. And as always, we want to thank you, the viewer and the listener, for taking time out to be with us. If you get a chance, check out the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube, and, of course, 12 Ounce Sports on YouTube. Check out all of our work that we do on 12 Ounce and the Captain Lou Sports Network. We've started a new podcast series called Captain Lou's Championship Years in Sports History. We had Steve Lansky on last night. Catch a replay of that. It'll be set to go tomorrow and Friday at noon. It was a great conversation as we highlighted the 1984 Edmonton Oilers and their Stanley Cup run, the beginning of a great run that they had in the 80s, but some great stories that Steve shared with us last night on the program. That'll be up. The replay will be up, but you can watch it anytime on our YouTube channel, which is 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Sports Network. But it's a brand new show. We talked how it works is each month we highlight a new year, and that we will go after all the sports champions, college and pro. We had the Detroit Tigers 1984 we highlighted a couple of weeks ago, or a week or so ago, with Fred Heumann, longtime sports personality here in the Michigan area, Michigan, Detroit, and Lansing especially. And then, of course, last night, Steve Lansky coming on, talking Edmonton Oilers. He was their center stage back in that run, a producer of a lot of Edmonton Oiler content with the broadcasting. So it was a great it was a real fun show last night as we got to take a look back at that 1984 Stanley Cup run with the Edmonton Oilers, and some great anecdotes there. So we invite you to check that out as well. All right, that's going to do it. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us again. Thanks to Rod Pedersen as well for coming on the show. Until next week, Captain Lou saying, keep your heads up, keep your sticks down, keep your feet moving, and as always, keep your minds open. Thanks for joining us here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza on 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Sports Network. So long.